Next In.
All right, we're live. We're live at Next In. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I decided to wear a bright blue shirt. I'm just realizing, very different than most of the black T-shirts I wear. But so I'm joined with co-host Shane Chown. I'm Taylor Duncan. Thank you guys for joining us. Really, really big pleasure. We have Steve Benson here, CEO of Badger Maps. Also, more importantly than that, went to the greatest university in the world, the University of Wisconsin. That is also where I went and attended.
No kidding.
Yep. So we're going to talk about that to get started. I'm curious. So you're CEO of Badger Maps. Did you come up with the name Badger Maps based on the Wisconsin Badgers?
I did, in fact. That was one of the reasons. I mean, so, Badger Maps also is a tool for salespeople, field salespeople in particular. And so, Badger and sales kind of go together a bit. So that made sense. But really, it was mostly because I went to the University of Wisconsin and I am a Badger, and therefore Badger Maps made a lot of sense.
All right. So you're a big Badger fan, I assume?
I mean, I went there. I don't follow a lot of their sports these days as much as I'd like to, but yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the school, and I'd love to make it back there actually for like a football game or something. But Wisconsin's very far from everything. So I grew up in Chicago. I hardly make it there, but Wisconsin's like an extra trek from the trip to Chicago, which, there's a lot of gravity in Chicago. I've got a lot of family there, a lot of friends there. So I'm always like, how do I make it up to Madison with all this going on?
So I played football there, and I've been to exactly 0 games since I left. So I get it. I totally, and my kids have been to games there, but again, on a football Saturday, I am typically at. Many of my kids have games or something like that, so it is very, very difficult to get there. All right, next question. You also went to New Trier High School. So are you willing to denounce on this podcast New Trier High School and how awful it is? Because I'm willing to. I went to Maine South, and New Trier was a rival. You probably did not realize that I was going to come out with that.
No, I didn't. We're going way back. I mean, I thought college was going way back. I'm no spring chicken here. I mean, now we're back in the 90s. So the early 90s. No, I won't denounce New Trier. I was, I was an athlete there, and still have great feelings about the school. I think they have some great programs, both on the athletic side, but the academic side. It's a great high school. My little sister went there as well.
All right, so it's official. We've decided New Trier is worse than Maine South. Thank you for the approval there. All right, so now let's get to Badger Maps. So tell us a little bit about. You're the CEO. You founded this company. It does some awesome stuff on a mapping side, but I want you to talk more about it. Tell us a little bit about Badger Maps and kind of the current state, and then we're going to work backwards and go. How did that all come about?
Sure. So Badger Maps is a mapping tool for field salespeople. So we integrate with a company's CRM system. So most companies have a CRM system in place, not all, but most, and that's where their customer data lives, right? Customer relationship management. That's where they keep their customer interactions. What deals do we have coming up? That sort of thing. And we link into that system and show all the information in that system on a map and give people like mapping, scheduling, routing tools. And this is really for, people that have a lot of meetings with customers in a field, and they're covering a territory. So like they may sell to 1,000 dentists in Cleveland, and they've got to kind of figure out which dentists to focus on and in what order they should see them and what their week's going to look like, given that they have to be here at this time and over there at that time. How do they fill that in? And that's the problem we set out to solve. The reason I set out to solve that problem was because my background was in field sales, and then my last role in the world of big company America was I worked for Google, and I was running their sales of their mapping products into the Western US. And so, I was very familiar with the mapping and routing tools that were available, and I was also very familiar with the problem that existed. And when I started Badger in like 2012. It seems like not that long ago, but really like mobile was just becoming a thing. Like we'd had iPhones have been out for several years, and like you were just starting to be able to like use these APIs to do cool things and actually build meaningful software on these mobile devices. And so, it's kind of a right place, right time thing where I understood the problem. I'd worked with, the building blocks of what the solution would look like, so I could envision what the solution would look like.
Okay. So, and this is the kind of the spin up. So let's kind of talk more about your history and background to getting into technology leadership, founding the company, where you came from. Talk a little bit more
Okay.
about Google and prior, what you were doing that kind of led to this place of going, I'm going to build a technology product that solves this problem.
Yeah, good question. I get so before I went to business school, I wasn't in technology. I worked in the insurance industry, and then during business school, I kind of came to the conclusion that I wanted to be on the revenue side as opposed to the finance or the cost side of companies, right? So I wanted to kind of be focused on marketing and sales, and I knew that's what I was interested in, and kind of figuring out how to grow the top line rather than squeeze cost out of the bottom. Now the squeezing cost was less interesting to me, although that's more what business school focuses you on is the squeezing costs or the financing or the strategy side of business. But I was really interested in the revenue side, and so I knew that. And then so the next question was, what should I sell? What area of the world would I like to go into? And I kind of landed on, well, it's good to sell things that are expensive and have a high margin. So I was interested in like pharmaceuticals, med devices, and technology. And so then so right after business school, I went into IBM's sales training program. That's a year-long program where they teach you all about sales and technology, basically. And at IBM, I was selling software, hardware, and consulting services. And kind of in the process of doing that, I was like, well, consulting's hard because you're selling bodies at a margin, and that so often you're getting yourself into difficult situations and people aren't happy with the results. I wasn't the consultant, but I was selling the consulting, and I found that to be pretty challenging, and just not as attractive a business as the more of the technology side. And hardware I saw at that time as really commoditizing, and the margins were thinning. And part of that was the types of hardware that IBM was selling. They had some really like unique high-end stuff, but then a lot of what they were selling was like x86 boxes, like blade servers and stuff. And VMware software was really eating the world of hardware at that point, right? Like, so VMware was just coming into their wheelhouse of virtualizing all these x86 boxes. And that was, a company like Google, you could see what they were doing with their data centers, and kind of the cloud wasn't yet a thing. It was still too new, but I didn't feel like hardware was the future. And it's just, and as a result, IBM was paying me a lot less to sell it. If I sold I was kind of like, well, selling $1 million of consulting is hard, and the customer rarely seems happy with what we've done. Selling $1 million in hardware is hard, and it's about as hard as getting someone to sign a check for $1 million in software. But the $1 million in hardware, we just made like $100,000. The $1 million in software, we just made $1 million. And so and we really got paid differently based on those things too. So that's kind of what started me down the path of software. I was like, okay, this is just a better business. I'd rather be involved in this stuff. I'd rather be involved in these deals. It's more interesting. It's higher paid. And then I went to another software company called Autonomy. And they were interesting because they're kind of a data organization. They ended up getting bought by HP, but they were a public company, but not a big one, a smaller public company. And so I was just focused on software, and they had one of the earliest SaaS offerings. So they were kind of early in the SaaS game, moving towards the cloud. Historically, they had sold an on-premise system. So I was selling both CDs and SaaS, and I pretty quickly figured out, wow, this SaaS stuff is great, lowers risk for the customer because it's a smaller bite on their first buy. It's more modular. They can scale it up and down as they want it. It's awesome that we put this on-premise thing in the cloud, and people should buy it this way instead of that way. And so I kind of focused on that. And and my interest there led me to Google, who was one of the early SaaS players. And so I ended up at Google, and I was there for a while. I got to work on some really cool projects and products. I was involved I was in pretty early in Google Enterprise. So like, all their enterprise software. So Google Apps, their search products, not their internet search products, but like their enterprise search products. So like, being able to search your enterprise's data. And the most interesting stuff to me was I think the maps and also the apps. I was really interested in the collaboration stuff and the email. All those early cloud products were really cool, and I did some creative and interesting things with maps, and so then that's how I kind of ended up focusing in that area for a little while, and then I saw this opportunity, which is basically, well, they've built the maps and people can build software on top of it. And here's a problem that a lot of people have. Like there's a lot of field salespeople out there, and we can solve a meaningful problem for them with these maps. And they need it on the mobile devices, which is kind of this new area. And I was always kind of thinking, like, what's going to happen when, these phones have gotten so much better in the last couple of years? What's going to happen as the internet on the phones gets faster? What's going to happen as the processors on the phones gets faster? This is a major paradigm shift. Google had, I wasn't just coming up with the stuff on my own. Google had posters everywhere, all around all their buildings. Like, what are you going to do when the mobile internet's 100 times faster? And it's like, wow, that does change a lot. I mean, when is that going to happen? And it was like, well, it's going to happen in like 2 years. So we got to be thinking about this stuff. So that's how I ended up starting this company. And 10 years later, it's got 70 employees, and we're doing $5 million a year in revenue. We got 8,000-ish customers. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And so when you think about it and you think about the future of the company, what keeps you up at night?
Let's see, what keeps me up at night? Well, lately I've been watching Sons of Anarchy, which is a very, very disturbing show. So that's been keeping me up at night. But
All right, cool. Well, I will add that. I'll add that to my list. I'm watching The Office for the first time. I know it's embarrassing. Everyone's like, "Wow, welcome to 2004." But
and then once you get done with Sons of Anarchy, then it's like Mayans next, because there was a spinoff on a couple of those characters.
Yeah. I think it's a great show. I'd recommend it to anybody. I think it's one of the best shows made, and I think the world of The Office too.
So let me ask you. I'll cut to the chase. A lot of sales has been moving more and more and more to these virtual sales meetings, right? Not everyone, obviously. A pharmaceutical sales rep still goes in the field. A med device, person is still visiting hospitals, but they're visiting them less, right? Because 20 years ago, you didn't have the option to do a virtual meeting, to meet with your clients virtually, right? So there's still salespeople. There's still obviously field salespeople, but there's less, right? Or at least it feels like that's dwindling. Is that true?
And I'll be honest, I'm the first to say I miss going out and knocking on doors and meeting people in person, and feeling like I have to do a virtual meeting. I have this massive love-hate relationship with it, because I love it because I can do it easier and more efficient and more of them in a singular day. I hate it because it's really easy for people to say fuck off 10 times more than what it was when I was taking somebody out for lunch and having a drink or something.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so we haven't seen it really go away. We saw certain industries during COVID shut down effectively and fire their sales teams or furlough their sales teams. And some industries just, a lot of companies going out of business. And that was really industry by industry, right? Like if you sold beer to bars, and 2020 was a bad year, right? And we have a lot of customers that do things like that, sell things to restaurants or bars or hotels, these verticals that just got slaughtered. But we service true field salespeople, and meaning they have lots of meetings in the field. And it's not like I was always a field salesperson, but in technology, which is has always been a hybrid role because just the nature of it. And I'm in the minority. I don't actually think that Zoom is a paradigm shift. I think we already had presentation software and phones for the last 50 years. We've had phones. I mean, when I started my career, I did sales meetings over the phone all the time, and you'd email them the deck, or before that we'd mail them the deck, and we'd talk about it on the phone if the team was distributed or whatever the reason. If the way the customer wanted to do it was that way, we would do it that way. Like Zoom makes it a little easier. All these modern presentation platforms make it a little easier than that. But really, the phone worked fine, and they could hear our voices just fine. Being able to see my silly little head in the screen, this little tiny thumbnail picture, doesn't really help me sell. I don't think. Maybe marginally, but if the industries that were truly field sales industries, and the best way to go to market was with a field sales team as opposed to retail or inside sales, or just selling it online. I think selling online is a bigger disruptor to the world than inside sales. I've seen whole industries and not get crushed yet, but be under a lot of pressure because of Amazon, effectively. So it's not about it just because that makes things so much cheaper to just transparently post your product on Amazon or other platforms of its nature and sell online and deliver the thing. There's a lot of things I find that to be very disruptive, especially to retail. Now, if you were selling a $100,000 laser, you're not going to sell that on Amazon or your website. It's a competitive industry. It's worth sending a person out. And in general, the areas that it was worth sending a person out 20 years ago, those industries are still sending a person out, and it's just worth the time from a sales cycle shortening perspective. And like you say, people tell you to fuck off. If you only know people over phone and Zoom, you don't know them and you haven't made a connection with them. It's very hard to make the same kind of connection with them,
100%.
than kind of traditional sales methods. And I think companies that try to, it's like if there's 5 laser companies and one of them's like, hey, we're going to lower our prices 10% and get rid of the field sales team, I think they've learned very quickly that was a bad idea. I think I've seen that go down, right? Like
and we're cut from that. We have that same mindset. We've talked about this with other guests about in office versus the remote workforce. So it's a different, but it's that same idea of, do you value the connection with people and stuff like that? Certain industries, I think it is very valuable. Maybe not engineering teams, because they really oftentimes do already follow a very kind of distributed or asynchronous plan or whatever they do, and it can work a little bit better there. But when you have, in our opinion, we're in the recruiting space, which is a very sales first kind of environment. We're here with our team at least 3 to 4 days a week. And we love it because of the personalities.
And we absolutely, I mean, I'll be honest, and our team loves it when like an outside salesperson kind of walks through our doors and tries to sell us something. And everybody's like grading that person. And I always think it's hilarious. It's just like, are we buying the water cooler from this guy? Are we not buying the water cooler from this guy? Like, is this person going to, detail all of our cars? I have no idea. It's pretty interesting. But there's also industries that I'm curious, what happens to them, where it's like, their phones don't exist. So you kind of have to go in person, right? And it's been crazy over the last 2 years where like phone numbers have disappeared. So
yeah, a lot of companies just don't have a published phone number. I mean, or if you call it, you can't get anybody, and we're like that, right? Like if you're a customer, you'll be routed to someone to help you. If you're, a guy selling loans and you want to talk to me, I'm impossible to reach, right? You can't get a hold of me.
There's no dial tree anymore, man. Like I had my dial tree skills were on point, and like nobody in my office even understands what it means to hack a dial tree.
Right. Like, no, me too. I used to that was a skill. That was a real skill. But yeah, no, it goes to nowhere. I mean, it goes to a message system, and I'll get an email about it being like, hey, did you want to talk to this guy? And I'm like, no, I know what they do. It's okay. Like I got it. cabbage loans and stuff. You know, like we don't have someone answering the phone here. It's like if you're a customer and you press 1, like you'll get routed to like the customer support team. But like if you're just if you were that loan guy, you'd get routed there and you'd be like, it would be very quickly be obvious you were in the wrong place. There's nothing that they can do to like, they can't like transfer the call to my cell phone, right? Like I don't have a phone, right? Like,
yeah. So from a technology side of things, help us understand what Badger does that is, special, right? Like what is it that Badger does that's really unique and special that but whether it is someone selling beer to restaurants or whatever can utilize, and why the technology behind it is so spectacular, not just Google Maps, but what your technology and what makes it, the value behind it.
Really, it's bringing technology to a really mobile person, a field salesperson who's out there doing 5 or more meetings a day. Like technology has to this point not been built for them. CRM technology is generally built for the browser first. It was meant to use at your computer, and so what a lot of people use us for is basically being the mobile skin of their CRM. So everything you're doing in our product is being sent, all that data is being gathered and sent back to the CRM, but you didn't have to sit down at your computer to do it. And people they like you, the people in the field like using it because they were spending, a half hour to an hour every day kind of figuring out the logistics of their life, right? Like figuring out, well, who do I focus on? And given where I have to be already, like I'm driving out to this suburb out here in the Northwest side, what else, who should I see on the way there? I've got to be there at, 1 p.m. for this meeting with this guy, but on Thursday, who should I see on the way out? Who should I see on the way back? What if I went this way back? Who do I focus on? Would I be able to be there on time? Is that guy even available? Coordinating all these things historically has been a real headache, and people have kind of juggled it in 10 minutes at a time here and there, and then sat down on Sunday night and try to plan out their week. And it's hard. It's just, and making that process easy for them it saves them a ton of time. They drive more efficient routes. Obviously, it's a route optimizing tool at its core, but it's also like the planning and scheduling elements of it. And then taking all that and giving it to them in a way that really works on their mobile device and gathers data on their mobile device. That's really what's special about what we've done. And so it's not uncopyable, right? Like we have a competitor that copies everything we do, and they're just 3 years behind us. But like they started their company 3 years later than us. It's hard to catch up because we have 4 times as many customers, and so we have 4 times as many engineers. But like it's one of these situations where anyone could rebuild this. It's just it's hard to do. Mobile's hard to work with. Mobile engineers are expensive, and it's just so I wouldn't say there's like a magical barrier to entry on this, other than we've already done it and built it, and it's here, and we charge a fair price for it. So it's not like Salesforce. They were so expensive that a lot of other CRMs were like, well, we can do that, but for cheaper. Like we can charge a third as much and give this a similar service. We're not leaving that room at the bottom. And so, I guess what's really unique about it is that it solves an important problem for people. And, it's not unique in that no one else could do it, but I don't think it has to be in software, because if you provide a great service at a fair price, people will use it.
So where do you see, you mentioned, hey, Google had these things on the wall. What are you going to do where do you see 2 years from now? How is the technology space going to change, and how is Badger working through that?
How is technology going to change? I think it gets faster, and more and more people are adopting it. I think one of the biggest hurdles right now is a lot of technology is available, but people haven't adopted it because they're still kind of figuring out their version 1 of their technology, right? So they bought a CRM system, but they haven't really gotten it humming, and so that's kind of the focus of the team that enables the salespeople with technology, for example. I'm just talking about in the sales space, but I think this is in general kind of the case with technology. Is there's a lot more technology available and that would be beneficial to companies than they're using at the moment, because they're kind of still wrapped around the axle of starting their journey towards digitalization and using apps for all their problems, because a lot of software just makes you a little bit better, right? Like a lot of it's not revolutionary. It's like it makes you 5% better, in terms of your top line here, or saves you 3% over there to purchase this app or that app. But in aggregate, up leveling your technology can make you be a game changer for a company. So I think over the next few years, we just see more and more people adopt technology and kind of get their early technology journey to a comfortable place. And we're already seeing that. I mean, some people got there 5 years ago, right? Especially bigger companies, I think, have been, it's because they have more money to throw around. They've been able to nail it better. But I think the long tail, most businesses are considered small businesses, the vast majority, and more technology that used to be only available to large companies is now available to small companies, and we're seeing them adopt it and implement it, succeed with it, and then they're going to adopt more, I think. So I think we'll see a lot more technology adopted, and some places are much further down the line than other places. Like if you go to like a 50-person company in California, they're often in a way different place from a technology perspective than a very similar company that's based in Georgia, right? Like I think the people are way further down the technology curve in certain parts of the country, and even more so parts of the world. You go to the same 50 company that's in, I won't pick on any particular country in Europe, but let's just say something in continental Europe. They often haven't started the journey at all, and they're using they're using Excel to do things that that same company in California switched over.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. We were kind of that for a little bit, where I was working in Excel sheets, and we've been trying to optimize our CRM more. But man, there's definitely a fine line between being in sales and being in sales ops. And I've realized being in sales ops, it's truly that. It's like, how do you start to unlock all of the potential options that you have? Like HubSpot, we've realized, has so many different automation tools that it's like, it's almost obnoxious how many automation tools there are. And I know our sales team, that like, they'll be like rattling their brain, being like running around like a chicken with its head cut off, being like, I have too many options. Like what option should I choose?
Yeah. And I think a part of professionalizing a sales team in the modern world is having people focused on enabling the sales team for things to happen automatically, things to happen easily, them to be prompted for things. The sales ops role, I think, will continue to rise in prominence. And, I think it really helps if someone in sales ops started out in sales, because then they truly understand, oh, this is a real problem. This solves a real problem and saves real time. I think it's really, if they didn't start in sales, it's really important that they really understand the salespeople. It's funny how many executives I run into. Often they're on like the technology side or the finance side, like they're holding the purse strings, and I'll like describe what I like. I'll have been introduced to them by like a manager of a sales team or something who's like, we need to buy this for our whole company. Like these guys are this one team. The one team of 10 is using this, and it's really going great, and we should buy it to everyone. And so they kind of pass us off to like IT and the CIO and stuff. And often they're like, is this even a problem? This seems so stupid. And I'm like, ask your guys. They're spending an hour a day on this. It's a huge time sink. And it's like there is a big disconnect between the IT teams and sometimes the operations teams, and certainly like the purse string holders and what the actual needs are. They're like, oh God, another app that's going to cost us $100,000 a year. And it's like, yeah, but if you have 100 sales guys and they each save an hour a day, what's that worth? Like, it's worth a lot. So, and our stuff isn't expensive, really. It's, $59 a month per rep, but it adds up if you have 200 reps, right?
Sure. So where do you see Badger Maps? You said, hey, we've grown, we got 70 people here. Where do you see Badger Maps in 2 years, 3 years? Is team going to continue to grow, or we have the technology in place? It's just a matter of bringing on more customers.
No, we have solved the core problem that we've set out to solve. Like, on the mobile device, we have a great ability to map and route and schedule your field sales team, and we integrate wonderfully with the CRMs, but there's still a ton of problems to solve. We're going to integrate better with CRMs. That's kind of been a big project we've been working on for a while here, and that's coming out at the end of this year. We just came out with a new product. It's a sales training tool called Badger Sales University. It's kind of like the Netflix model, but for sales training. So it's like $30 a month, $29 a month. And you get access to a ton of sales training videos. And basically it's a cool model. Like, we built the platform and all these, there's lots of like sales training gurus and, that have already built courses, and they were sitting behind their firewalls in different places. They're not firewalls, paywalls. Like, if you were to go to this guy's website, this sales leader, you could hire him for 10 grand to come talk to your sales team, or for $500 a person, he would give you his 10 courses that are on his site. And what we're doing instead is we're going to him and saying, hey, well, keep selling them like that, but also put your 10 courses on this platform, and people can, it's the Netflix model. Some people will watch it, some people won't, but we're going to pay you. We just split the profits with or actually not the profit, we split revenue with the creators of the content. And so the model is that they get half of the value, we get half of the value from a revenue perspective. And the way we pay them is based on how much their stuff is used. So if this guy gets 2%, if this sales thought leader gets 2% of the viewership, then he'll get 2% of that 50% of the revenue. So it's a pretty cool model. I think it's disruptive to the space. I think it brings a lot of value, just like Netflix was disruptive to cable, I hope. But and people like I think to get access to these types of things. It's very Hulu, and it's Masterclass, if you're familiar with that, but that's kind of teaching consumers things. It's kind of like Masterclass just for sales. But that's
which is your customer base currently, right? So it kind of works to interact well with your current customer base and kind of utilize off of that.
Well, we kind of figured that we'd break even just on building the thing just by upselling our current customer base, like just letting them know, hey, did you want great sales content online like this, like delivered this in this way? We think that it'll pay for itself right there. But our customer base is only field salespeople, and we probably only have 2% of field salespeople in the world using this already. So there's a lot more of them to go find. But then field sales is also only probably about 15% of the total sales market. So, and this is applicable to retail salespeople. It's applicable to inside salespeople. It's applicable to really anyone in sales. And so it's a much bigger market to prosecute. So it's a cool product, and I'm excited about it.
So how can we help you? Obviously, we're in the recruiting space. A lot of people who watch this are, in the technology recruiting, or, we've worked with them in the past or whatever. What are you looking? How can you utilize this platform for Badger Health or Badger Maps?
Well, I'd say, it's if anyone knows people who are in field sales, like if you're a recruiter and you're recruiting for salespeople, if they are if the VP of sales, the decision maker for you is a field person, this is probably an area you could add value to let them know about this. Most people just don't even know about it, but it's kind of like especially where gas prices are right now, it's like really easy to show people how it pays for itself in the first month. Just right off the bat, like running better routes.
There's a tool that's what you need an engineer, and maybe your tool does it. Maybe it's one of the tools where it'll map out how many miles were saved and how much gas was saved. Because right now with gases, I think most recently it was $39 a gallon. No, it was $142 a gallon.
146 I last saw.
$146 a gallon. Yeah, it's more valuable than gold, which is amazing.
It costs more than whiskey, and whiskey seems way more useful to me. So
well, we're in Tennessee. Whiskey's cheap here. So, but again, it's that idea of if showing the value. I'm sure a lot of it is the amount of time. That's maybe where a lot of people's heads were at, was how much time was saved, from the, as you said, the finance people, the purse strings. Well, now it's also, maybe it's the value in the gas and mileage on the vehicles. If you do have a fleet of vehicles that you're covering the cost of,
it's like mileage per meeting. Like you could almost do like a mileage per meeting cost analysis.
Yeah, because your meetings go up and your miles go down. The most companies were already tracking their miles, just because they have to reimburse people for the wear and tear to their car, or they're paying for the gas, or they bought the car for them, right? Depending on the industry and the business, right? But in any of those scenarios, miles are being counted because they're taxed for tax reasons, right? And they're being counted before we get implemented and after we get implemented. And so it's often really clean to see, we saved 22% of miles, right? The team is driving 22% less and getting more done from a meetings perspective. So, and a sales perspective. So that is a win, and they can calculate. It's funny when I talk to the CIOs, that's the first thing I bring up. I'm like, here's how this is a hard cost. This is what it's costing you today. This is what it's going to cost you tomorrow. It's going to be about 20% less. That's a tiny fraction of the value of the product, right? We've got a whole ROI analysis, and really the value is your reps sell more because they're,
of course,
because they're saving this time and because they're focused on the right people, and you've given them this tool to be more efficient. That's the real value. It's 20x the value of the gas savings. But the CIOs, they want to dig right in. They don't care about the time savings or the greater sales. They want to dig right into those.
Well, sure, and that's their job, is to focus on bottom line, right? And if they can look at it and go, I have a line item that I can cut 20% off of, that saves me, $42,000, and it costs me $12,000, then I'm doing it.
That's exactly it. And they're like, and that's why I bring it up with them right away, because they're like, oh, well, that's great. Okay, well, then I no longer care about cutting this check, because it's going to come right out of here in the budget.
Exactly.
And so I think that there's an important sales lesson there. Probably, you gotta different people in an organization. You got to change your messaging around.
Know your audience, right? Know your audience and understand your audience and their pain points. So to find you guys, to connect with you guys, badgermapping.com, right? Just go to the website, or do you want them to connect with you on LinkedIn, or?
Yeah, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. Just, Steve Benson, Badger Maps. That's if you're looking for me. If you're looking for Badger, just Google Badger Maps. And Badger Sales University, same thing. We're easy to find. But yeah, it's, in terms of, I've got a podcast. If you're in field sales, it's a podcast specifically to teach field salespeople to be better salespeople, called Outside Sales Talk.
How can they find that?
It's called Outside Sales Talk. It's on all the platforms. So they just run a search in iTunes or Spotify or whatever, they'll find us. Outside Sales Talk. Easy to remember, because it's the only sales podcast for outside salespeople.
There you go. Look at that. So let's ask a couple of personal questions. Where are you located right now?
So I've spent the last 20 years in California, and I've just 6 months ago moved to Salt Lake City.
Oh, all right. What was the move for?
I had a baby, or I was going to have a baby. I just had one 11 weeks ago, and California is just as I looked at moving out of the small apartment into more of a house, I was like, oh, well, this is very expensive.
It's actually more expensive than gas. Actually, surprisingly, I didn't think there was anything in this world more expensive than gas. But yes, real estate in California is more expensive than gas.
Yeah, it was brutal. So I was like, well, I mean, and I had an office here in Salt Lake. I opened up an office here like 6 years ago. It's a great place for, sales teams, customer success teams, customer support teams. And so I opened up an office kind of focused on that. And so I already had an office and a group here. And so it made a lot of sense as when I ran the numbers, I was like, I should put all my crap in a truck and go out there. That's if I've got to move anyway, I might as well, drive the truck 11 hours once I've got all my crap on the truck.
I get it. All right. So what should we do if we took a trip out to Salt Lake City? What's like the number one thing? You're new there. What do you recommend we do on our trip to Salt Lake?
It depends what you're into. The things that I think are truly fantastic. Well, I think the mountains are the draw. So you want to go down to Park City and hit the slopes if it's the wintertime. If it's the summertime, hiking, the trout fishing in the rivers is fantastic. But the biking around here, people love. Feels awful hot and dry for me, but people love to bike here. But yeah, I recommend it's got some of the best skiing in the country, which is I'm a snowboarder, so that was a big draw for me thinking about moving here.
Oh yeah, go to Deer Park or the canyons. Yep, spend a lot of time in Park City. All right, so last question. We know you like Sons of Anarchy, and you're gonna watch Mine's next, but to get to the big screen, what is your favorite movie?
Wow, my favorite movie ever? That's a tough one, man.
If it's a good one, we'll talk more about University of Wisconsin. If it's a bad one, we'll say, well, you're from New Trier. I get it. So.
I like sci-fi a lot. I think the best movie that I've seen in the last 5 years is Dune.
Interesting.
I think that I was really impressed with that. I think that's if I were gonna call one movie out as the best one I've seen in 5 years, that's the one I'd call out.
Do you agree, Shane? Do you agree?
I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I would say number one, even though I should say it's number one because one of our clients helped do a lot of the animations in that specific film. So I should say that it was one of our number ones. But yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. I think they did a really good job in comparison to like the original storyline, and I'm actually really jazzed up to see the second one. I guess I felt like the first movie ended very similar to how I felt in the first Matrix, where I was like, what the fuck? It can't be over. Like it's not over yet. Like what? And I kind of hate when a movie ends the way that Dune ended, where it was just like,
hey, you can't do this. It's too new. You can't start throwing out spoilers like that.
No, it's over a year, and I was pissed, and I was just like, I just felt like it wasn't the end of a movie. It was kind of like a cliffhanger for a TV series that I'm binge watching, which I can't binge watch this. That's how I felt.
But I mean, it is the first of two movies, which is book one of a series of 3 books, right? So it's not the story was not done. They in their defense, they did that was the first half of a book, and they promised to make the second half. It's coming.
Did you read the books?
I have not read the books, but I have there's about 20 books on my reading list already that I haven't read. So reading for fun, it has to happen below all those. So I do actually own the books, but I haven't actually
art in New Home.
Yes, I have lots of books that I buy just so that I can look at them and feel sad about not reading them.
Or feel really smart and be like, look at all these wonderful books. I haven't read any of them, but look at I'm smart if I purchase a book.
Intriguingly, the baby loves to look at the bookshelf. I don't know why, but I'll just like sit her in a little rocker thing in front of the bookshelf and have it bounce. And she loves that. She loves to look at the books. And that's all I do with them too, is I just look at them. I don't read them.
And then you watch the movie. Hey, my new favorite, I will say The Terminal List. I know it's a show, so I kind of broke the rule, but I thought that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. It's on Prime.
I haven't seen that one, The Terminal List.
It's savage. It's awesome. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was on Prime Video. I was thinking in my head recent. I'm like, whoa, a Terminal List. And then I'm like, wait, that wasn't a movie. Although it felt like a movie. It's not a movie. It's a eight 1 hour episodes. And that was pretty awesome.
It's an 8 hour movie. You just
that's why, yeah, it's an 8 hour movie. It really is. It's kind of like a Saturday. And I'll bet you your baby would love it. Although
she doesn't. She tends to just sleep when I'm watching the things. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I haven't seen this. This looks cool though.
Yeah, it's good. It's really, really good show. All right. Well, hey, Steve, we've taken a lot of your time. We appreciate all your thoughts kind of on the industry, what got you there, and everything else in between. And go Badgers and go Badger Maps. So thank you for joining us today, everyone. Go connect with Steve on LinkedIn. Go check out badgermapping.com. Go interact. I think the tool you have built is awesome for outside, field salespeople. Check out your podcast, everything else. And again, thank you for joining us and just giving us some wisdom.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This has been great.
Everyone else, goodbye.
Nxt In.